It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, December 10th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that wonders if there's a goaltending solution for the Phantoms with the Flyers right now.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. You can keep the season going with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit fanduel.com to get started. And to keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials, including Blue Sky. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are going to get to our Phantoms Tuesday report, including the goaltending situation there. But first, obviously, we got to talk about tonight's matchup against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And want to follow up on something from the Utah game, Russ, in that we saw towards the end of the game, Matvei Michkov got ejected from the game. We've talked a little bit about just keeping an eye, not that we're like overly concerned yet, but keeping an eye on like how things like get under his skin a little bit. And there's this combination of him defending himself, but other guys jumping in for him as well. And I think we need to figure all that out, but it does relate to him getting ejected from that game.
It does. Barrett Hayton was like on the backboards with him, and I think he was holding him or something, and Michkov like took exception to it, and so he pushed him, and then he threw a punch. And when he threw the punch, now when Michkov went off, he had a mark on his face, so maybe Hayton did something that we couldn't see, or maybe he got pushed into the boards, or who knows what, right? But he did that, and so then he went up the tunnel and he got kicked out of the game. And I think it was Hayton, and so did he. So they both had to go to the locker room. There is video. I didn't watch it because just like it wasn't that big of a deal. But he may have signed an autograph while he was on his way to the locker room. Yeah, which I'm not sure if there'll be repercussions for that. But he may have done that. But the point is, he does need to reel it in. This is now, the one part of him being 20 years old, just turned 20. That
happy belated, Matvei.
Yeah, that is showing. And he has to realize these things are not going to be to his benefit. They're just not.
Yeah, it is interesting just because, again, we've seen other guys jump in for him, guys that wouldn't necessarily normally do that sort of thing, like Owen Tippett, for instance.
Correct.
We saw recently. So I think we don't want it to cause harm to other people's game as well. So again, just something to put a pin in. And if it becomes a problem for real, then we'll talk about it a little bit more on the show. In the meantime, the Flyers do face the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. It's their first matchup of 4 with Columbus this season. And obviously the biggest news recently out of Columbus is the David Jiricek trade and them sending David Jiricek to the Minnesota Wild. So it's been an interesting season for Columbus because they are at the bottom of the division, right? But we talked about how there's the top 3 teams and then everybody else is the bottom mush, right?
Yeah, pretty much. It's not like 1 point separates them all.
Yeah, pretty much in like a 5-point range for all of the other teams, right?
Right.
So I think that nobody's expecting Columbus to push for the playoffs when all is said and done, but it says something that we're in like the second week of December and Columbus isn't necessarily out of it either.
No, I mean, look, we could start talking about the math of the NHL, and maybe that's keeping a minute, but they're playing better. There's no question they're playing better. And if this is just me, right? I always speak as if I'm running the Flyers, but if this were me and the Flyers play this game and they lose to Columbus, and it's not because they've lost 4 in a row that I'm going to react, but I'm going to react where, okay, I have to decide now the course of the team this season. And I do think they would have to change course because the math keeps getting worse and worse. They went through their hot streak, and now if you can't beat Columbus at the bottom, you do have a problem. So I think that this is a game. I'm not calling it a must win, but I think it's one where you have to look at it and say, they can't come out of this. Where are they really going to be this year?
Yeah, it is interesting because you look at, they had a 3-game losing streak going, right?
Yeah.
Where they lost to the Canucks, the Oilers, and the Flames. Basically, they went out west and did not go well.
No.
So, but those are all very good teams. Then
Mhm.
finish up in Winnipeg, one of the hottest teams in the league, and win that one 4-1. And that's
Right.
why I'm saying, like, all these teams win these sorts of games because,
Mhm.
that's why they play the games, as they say.
Sure.
Anybody can win on any given day. Kent Johnson had 2 goals in that one. Both of them were assisted by JVR. And JVR is having a really interesting impact in Columbus right now because he's on that line and kind of, I think, acting as a mentor in a lot
Yeah.
of ways, which is his role on that team now, obviously. But now he's helping the guys around him and these younger guys produce in a really positive way. And I think that's, it's what he's there for. And that's helping Columbus a lot.
Yeah, he's going to be a dangerous guy in this game, especially on the power play. It's not like he can't play anymore. I mean, JBR could still put
Right.
up goals. Johnson, you already talked about. I did see that Cole Sillinger may or may not be hurt.
So Cole Sillinger left the game against the Jets. He took a slap shot in the second and later tried to block another shot. Did one shift in the third period, and then that was that. He left the game, right? So we
Yeah.
don't know yet if he's coming back. They're not going to have an update until today on his status because they had Monday off.
And, Zach Werenski is having a banger of a year. I mean, that's a guy, if you're John Tortorella, you know what a healthy Zach Werenski can be like. And I think that's somebody you have to game plan against.
You absolutely do. And, you look at the lineup there. Dante Fabro, who they acquired through waivers,
Which is
which is
crazy.
just
Crazy.
absolutely bonkers, right? Which is why they could trade David Jiricek away because they basically been
Yep.
using Fabro for that role. That
Yep.
top pairing of Werenski and Fabro is absolutely phenomenal, right? I
Yep.
think that's an excellent top pairing on any team, let alone the Blue Jackets. Like that is a true top pairing in the NHL.
Yeah, Marchenko's a sniper. Like there's guys that you have to worry about in this game, and uh, I don't think they'll play as fast as Utah, but I think they'll be close. So I think the Flyers, one of the plays that annoyed me in the last game was Scott Lawton. Like, I know you love the power kill, right? But the power
Right.
kill works only when you're playing against teams that are like equal speed. If you're playing against a team that's faster than you, or you could see they got out of the gate faster, the power kill is not a good tool because once you kind of go back and go deep in the zone, if you lose that puck, you're done.
Yeah, I think there is something to that. I do think they made some poor choices on the power kill the last time around in terms of when to take the shot and when to pass. I don't think it was about the getting back that was the issue. I think they made some poor choices. They slowed down as a result of being indecisive, and that's why they couldn't get back. That's what I think happened in that case. But it'll certainly be an issue in this Columbus game for sure. So we talked about the first pairing, but our old friend Ivan Provorov is on the second pairing for Columbus. And I had not checked in on him in a little bit, and he's just still chugging along. He did leave their previous game prior to the Jets game a little bit early due to being banged up, but then he came right back in and played the full game against the Jets, as he is wont to do. He's still only missed those 3 games from COVID and played every other potential game. So we know he's always going to bring it a little bit more against the Flyers, right?
Yeah, he is. And, I may not agree with the way he thinks in real life, but I can respect the fact that he's an Iron Man player, and he is. So, yeah, he's going to try and have his best game too. So, this is one where this game is tricky. This game is tricky because there may be some Flyers fans that say, "Oh, Columbus, we're better than Columbus." Well, you're not really. And that's the thing. Right now they have to kind of prove who they're better than. And otherwise they're going to earn that spot like you said and like with those bottom 3 or 4.
Right, and then as far as goaltending goes, Merzlikins played against the Jets. He was very good. He had been iffy his previous 2 starts, but really kind of recovered and played quite well against the Jets, only letting in that 1 goal. Tarasov played versus the Oilers as part of
Okay.
that 3-game losing streak. So I'm guessing we're get Merzlikins because then he'll play again against the Caps on Thursday, and then Tarasov will play Saturday against the Ducks. If I were the Columbus Blue Jackets, that's how I would arrange things, but we shall see at some point today.
Yep, we'll find out.
All right, so hopefully the Flyers can get back on their winning track against the Columbus Blue Jackets. In the meantime, the Lehigh Valley Phantoms were not in their winning ways
Oh boy.
this past week. We got to dig into that and their goaltending issues coming up next. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you love sports, you're going to love Prize Picks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your other favorite sports, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the action. And here's why you need to get started today. You can win up to 200 times your money on Prize Picks, and you can also get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. There's no need to win. The $50 is guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers fun weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where select player projections are discounted up to 25%. So download the app today, use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get that $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, on our Wednesday show, of course, we will recap the game against Columbus that we just talked about. Plus, we'll be answering your mailbag questions, so get those in. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, send us a message on any of our socials, or comment over on YouTube. So, Russ, the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, rough week, rough week. Last Wednesday, they got demolished by the Rockford Ice
I watched
Hogs.
some of that. Oh, ugly.
Yeah, I know.
It
It
was a
was a real
national
ugly
game, so a
game.
lot of people watched it.
Yep, yep. 7-3 was that game, and 2 of those 3 goals were late in the game for the Phantoms, so it was just kind of like,
Yeah.
well, whatever.
It was 7-1,
At that
right?
point.
Yeah, I remember
Yep,
that. Yeah.
yep.
I bailed at that point.
Right. I do not begrudge you that in any way. And then Saturday and Sunday, they played a back-to-back against Hershey, home and away. Saturday was the Teddy Bear Toss game. They lost both games. The first one 3-2 in overtime. The second one 5-4 in regulation in Hershey. And that drops the Phantoms down to 7th in the Atlantic. Things are tight. So you have a rough week and you go from
Yeah,
4th to 7th
you do.
really easily.
What about your
There's 3.
proclamation?
Yeah, so let's talk about that
Okay.
because first off, Helge Grans was back with the team, right? So that was good
Yes.
in some ways. They had some other shuffling with blue liners as well, just because of availability and injury and such. Louis Belpedio got hurt on Saturday, so he was out Sunday. There was like a whole bunch of shuffling going on there, but the Hershey proclamation that I made last week, I think I am correct in that I said that the Lehigh Valley Phantoms get Hershey's game and they have their number. And as long as they hold their own game together for the full game, they can win against Hershey any day because they know how to stop them. And despite the fact that they lost both of these games were 1-goal games. They had most of the game they were handling it. They
Yeah, I
were
think that's fair.
absolutely
I do.
handling their business and, you know, stopping Hershey through the neutral zone. Hershey were not getting, a tremendous amount of high quality looks. I thought even if the shot totals were high, I don't think the shot quality was high for Hershey
Right.
during these 2 games. It's just that, they make key mistakes, the Phantoms do, and then Hershey jumps right in. And for instance, there was on Saturday during that game, first off, the teddy bear goal did not happen until 30 seconds left in the second period. So people were very itchy. And that was the
Oh, I'm sure.
first goal scored in the game. And so interestingly, they sent everybody to the locker room and just cleaned up
Right.
the beers, and they played the end 30 seconds of the period right before the third period,
Okay.
which was the right way to go. There was like an empty net. The Phantoms were ahead, right?
Yeah.
And they scored an empty net goal to put the game away. Samu Tuomaala was offsides on the empty net goal, and it then gave Hershey time to tie it up with 3 seconds left because they pulled the goalie for the extra attacker,
Right.
were able to convert, and then the Phantoms lost in overtime, right?
Crazy.
Huge mistake by Samu Tuomaala in that
Massive.
game that
Yeah.
cost them the game in regulation. I think both teams played well in overtime in that game, but, Hershey wound up winning with 20 seconds left in the overtime. Tuomaala, again, could have had another really good chance, but he went off for a line change by
Right.
kind of mistake. He didn't stay in. So, and the puck was sent right to him, but he was off going to the bench and he should have stayed. Like
Hmm.
he made a couple really key mistakes in that game that
He's not
led
going
to
to
the
get called
loss.
up doing that.
No. And then like in the game on Sunday, the Phantoms wound up having a 5-minute power play because there was, an ejection, right? There were 2 ejections in that game, one for each team. So the Phantoms scored shorthanded when they were on the 5-minute penalty kill. But Hershey scored right back
Right.
after that. Like they didn't keep the momentum
Right.
going on any of that. So I feel like there were just these key little lapses that kept Hershey in the game. And you add that plus the goaltending, that's kind of what went out the window there. There was potential for the Phantoms to win both of these games. They came back from 2 goals down in one of them, and they were neck and neck in the other. There was just such great opportunity there, and I feel like they kind of blew it a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, the coaching staff can't do anything about the goaltending, but what I feel like they can do stuff about is like things that Tuomaala is doing or not doing, and then
Right.
also uh, special teams.
Yeah. Now, we'll get into special teams. I do wanna say one adjustment that they made that was confusing to me, but it had the right effect on the right player. So last week we talked about the quote unquote "new top line" with Massimo Rizzo centering Ali Lixel and Samu Tuomaala. That worked pretty well for that weekend. That line did not exist this weekend, and that surprised me
Why?
genuinely because I thought it was doing well. There's no explanation that I could come up with as to
Right.
why. However, what Lappy did decide to do is we know JR Avon has been struggling
Yes.
mightily this season, right? No goals to his name. So he decided to move JR Avon into the top line with Rhett Gardner, who's been a solid center for
Right.
them, and Anthony Richard, who we know is fast and
Right.
can score, right? Lo and behold, JR Avon has a goal and an assist this
Okay.
weekend. And so if his goal was simply this weekend to get JR Avon going, he succeeded.
Yeah, but
Lappy
that's,
succeeded. But that can't
unfortunately,
be
that
it,
can't be it.
right?
Right. The next game, they should have just put Avon on a different line and reunited that line, especially after a loss, right? And then you might have
Right,
sparked Avon and got your best line back. This is what I'm
right.
saying. I'm not impressed with the coaching there this year. I'm not.
Right, and I think Denoye suffered as a result because he got moved back down the
Yeah.
lineup and didn't really have as much support. I would say that Lixell suffered because they just kind of put him anywhere because they know he's a team player and he'll
Right.
do that. But I just do not agree with any of the decisions that they're making with the forward lines here because I understand wanting to boost JR Avon, very important,
Sure.
right? But it really, I don't think, had a good impact on some of the other players. Zayde Wisdom, who had a great week last week, has continued to actually play really well. He
Good
had some really, really good quality chances. They moved him up the lineup. He wasn't just a fourth liner this week. They moved him
for
up
him.
a little bit of second line time, mostly third line time. He had an assist Wednesday and scored his first goal of the season on Sunday. And that he scored that shorthanded goal, and it was an
Yeah.
amazing play. Brendan Furry took a shot, and Wisdom tapped in the rebound. And so I just really think there's been some individual progress at certain moments, but it seems like the progress of one is hampered by the intent to help other players.
Yeah, like I said, they need to go back to having that best line. Uh, their defense should be the best they've had all year. Now that Gronz is back, and they've made moves and they have Gleason, and so. But I saw, like, against Rockford, who is a good team, they gave up 20 shots in one period.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
Nope.
So
Nope.
I don't know what to say. I know the goaltending isn't good enough and it may not get better. We don't know. So you've got to figure it out. And if that means you got to play a different style, then play a different style. But right now they're not winning. And so you
Right.
don't want to, again, if the Phantoms don't make a playoffs, it's a real organizational failure. If the Flyers don't make a playoffs, it's okay because there's a secondary plan in place for that. There is no secondary plan in place for Lehigh. You want
Yeah.
those guys to get playoff experience so then when they go up to the next level, they have that under their belt.
Yeah. Well, we are going to dig into that goaltending situation and talk about how the existing guys performed this week and potential solutions coming up next.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I would take the Ravens over the Giants this week with the money line. Just visit fanduel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's fanduel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right. So we had 3 games this past week, right?
Yep.
And you look at the goaltending performances on Wednesday, Cal Peterson started. He allowed 5 goals on 18 shots.
It was hot garbage. It was.
It was absolute garbage. Parker Gahagan comes in and allows 2 goals on 18 shots. So
okay, fine.
Slightly better, whatever. Cal Peterson then in the game on Saturday, 22 saves on 25 shots. They lost the game, but
Better.
Slightly better performance, right?
But again,
So
he is like a former NHL veteran. Like, he's got to have these steal him kind of games for this team. If he doesn't, who's signing this guy?
right. So then
Next year.
Sunday, Gahagan has to start, right? Because
Yeah,
Cal Peterson
just has
played
to.
the day before, right? Parker Gahagan plays the first 2 periods and allows 4 goals on 18 shots. Again, with this 18 shots. So Cal Peterson comes in relief and gives up 1 goal and 5 shots,
Ugly.
right? And that 1 goal was the game winner
Right,
for
of course.
Hershey,
Of course.
right? So because that was the only goal scored in that
Right.
third period in the game on Sunday. And he also made an absolutely spectacularly awful play in the third that luckily he saved himself on, but he skated out so far, like into not behind the net, but in front of the net,
Just
skated
into the
out
abyss.
into the abyss. And then he wound up luckily gloving the puck on a shot that came directly at him. But it was not okay. Like, he was
No.
making some bad decisions.
Yeah.
And I think that, we talk about the skaters not getting it done. Well, you do have some guys getting it done there, right?
Yeah.
You have Anthony Richard, who got 3 assists in one
Mhm.
game this weekend, right? Ben Gleason has been a great addition
Yeah,
to
he's
the
been a
blue
good ad.
line there. There are guys who contribute. Jacob Gaucher got that teddy bear toss goal shorthanded on Saturday, which is the first time the teddy bear toss goal had been a shorty.
Ever
Like,
in the
they're
history of
yeah,
hockey? Wow.
well, for the Phantoms.
For the
I don't know
Phantoms.
other teams.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like, there are guys who are getting it done to some degree, but the goaltending just is not supporting that, and
No.
that's I fully believe they could have won at least 3 more games this season so far, were it not for the goaltending, and I don't blame Parker Gahagen. I think he gets tossed around a
He
little
does.
bit, but he's also, like, he's a borderline ECHL, AHL goalie. That's who he is.
Well, and this
You
is
know
where having 3 goalies in Philly kills the Phantoms, and
Yep.
that's why it's not a sustainable model, and that's why it's not good, but, like, it should have already been resolved, if you ask me. It shouldn't have gone this long.
Yeah, I just think, like, Aleksei Kolosov is a goaltender that could steal games for the Phantoms,
No doubt.
and I understand wanting to keep him up with the Flyers. I just don't think that's realistic right now. We talked about it pretty extensively on
We did.
yesterday's show, with our logic there, and that the right decision right now is to give Alexei Kolosov the mantle for the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, at
Right.
least for the next duration, or if Sam Ersson gets hurt again, fine, call him
Sure,
up,
then you throw them back up.
right? But he's a guy you can move up and down because he doesn't have to go through waivers, and he's good enough that he could absolutely steal games for the Phantoms, and that is what they need right now.
It should be the game plan, but again, we know there's other forces at work here. Otherwise, any other team in the league, Guy'd be down, and it wouldn't be a problem. This is a problem or a potential
Yes,
problem.
it is a potential problem, and you think, like, the Flyers once had way too many had 8 goalies at once, right? And now it
Yep.
feels like there is nobody there because
Right.
of those 3 all up at the Flyers at the same time. I I'm hoping there's some sort of transaction related to that today, ahead of the Columbus game, but we'll see what happens. Maybe they're gonna hold him up there just because they're afraid of him to
Yeah.
leave, but,
Yeah.
and like I've said, I do understand that. I do understand wanting to hold on to him, especially because there isn't much goaltending depth if he leaves, right?
Right.
It's a huge risk, and I don't, like, minimize that at all. But you also need to help your prospects down there, and if
You
they don't have
do.
goaltending, like, what are we doing here?
Right. I mean, you're just setting them up to fail.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially when your special teams aren't performing as well as
Correct.
they need to at this point. At one point, the Phantoms were 2nd in the AHL on the power play. Now they're down to 7th because they were 1 for 8 this week. They were 8 for 10 on the penalty kill. They were only down 1 spot. I think that it's fine. It's just not great, and sometimes they let one in key moments, right? Where sometimes it's the goaltender and sometimes
Yeah.
it's the
I know it's
defense
an easy thing to say,
there.
well, a team just needs to battle around and rally around the goaltending. Well, it's not that easy when the goaltending's not great.
Yeah, so there's a lot of work to be done in Lehigh Valley is
A
really
lot.
the upshot here, and, there are some potential solutions out there. We just haven't seen the team make any action to try and solve any of the issues there, and
Right.
that's really what's missing is we don't hear the Flyers organization talk about the Phantoms with any level of importance or understanding for what the Phantoms mean to the organization. We do see, the management shows up at games, but we
Yeah,
don't
once in
hear
a while,
anything.
sure.
We don't hear anything about
No.
their experience at those games when,
No.
Danny Briere says something or Keith Jones says something. They don't talk about the Phantoms. So,
No.
and I think they're kind of missing out on being transparent. This is something they've said they want to be transparent. They're not transparent about the Phantoms and the importance of the AHL to developing their prospects.
I agree. It's a function of an organization, and if you're willing to, give interviews on the Flyers, you should give interviews on the Phantoms too, or at least when you're being interviewed about the Flyers, you
Or
interject.
have Alan McCauley available
Right. Or you interject about the Phantoms. Yeah. Even having Alan McCauley available would be a good thing. Like, even if
like
they
once
just,
a month.
right, just once in a while, just because,
Yeah.
I think fans, should know what's going on. But.
So in the meantime, there are 3 games this week, one of which is tonight at the Toronto Marlies. They start off the week a little early. Then they have a Thursday game and a Saturday game, both at Cleveland. And so Cleveland is in second place
Not
in
easy
the
teams here.
North Division. Toronto's right in the middle of that North Division as well. So we know like the Phantoms, they always seem to have a tough time up in Toronto
Yeah.
against the Marlies, and then similarly at Cleveland. So it is going to be a tough week for this team, and we would hope they have the support to get it done.
Fingers crossed.
All right, that will do it for today's show. We'll be back tomorrow talking Flyers versus Columbus and our mailbag. So let us know your Flyers or Phantoms questions. Happy to answer any of those as well. And let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at those same socials at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.